Hey there, little buddies, and welcome to yet another edition of the Boob Tube Buddies podcast, in which we will discuss Twin Peaks: The Return, episodes 1 and 2. I'm Mothman, and this is the lady to my log, Julia.
Hi.
See, it's a nice, apt
The lady
one.
to my log.
Yeah, and it's a little dirty, so I think that works too.
I didn't catch on to that.
Right? Yeah. Well, I initially just did it as a log lady reference, and then I read it aloud. I'm like, it's, if you don't get the reference, it's just a dirty joke. Anyway, before we get into like any spoilers and any of that territory, since we've kind of been starting our shows off with a few news stories, I figured we'd do almost like a Welcome to Night Vale thing, where it's just weird news stories, and I'm just going to read them to you because I think you're going to find them funny.
Okay. And I will listen.
Yes. Okay. And then you'll react and it'll be great. Okay. So first one, yoga is trendy already, but if you combine it with organic ethical farming, it's downright enlightening. That's right. Goat yoga is a thing. There's now yoga classes where they let into the studio some small, cute little goats. And all they do is walk on top of the people doing yoga and lean against them. And it's meant for you to, have good and sturdy posture. Otherwise, you'll fall over. Right?
I would never be able to concentrate on yoga.
No.
I'd be wanting to pet the goats and play with them.
And I will show you pictures after we're done because there's no way I would ever do yoga. I would just pet these cute, adorable goats all day. Sure. That's pretty ridiculous,
and
right?
How do the goats not eat stuff? Because they love to eat everything. Isn't it goats? Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe because all athleisure wear is basically synthetic, nano webs and stuff. That it's not cotton or stuff that goats like to eat. I don't know.
That would be comical.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Here's another one. A woman in North Carolina is facing charges after dressing up like a T-Rex and intentionally scaring horses.
Why? Why horses?
Well, so remember that episode of Last Man on Earth where there's that where Tandy is in the dinosaur?
Yeah.
And it's pretty realistic looking from afar. Anyway, some lady put one of those and ran up to a horse carriage and went roar, and then the horses ran into a car and dented the car and stuff. So now she's having to pay for the damages.
Oh my goodness.
Right? But can you just imagine
Well, she's really kind of not just scaring horses, she's scaring the people, and it just happened to be horses that are pulling the people.
Well, no, the horses got scared and ran the carriage into a car.
Yeah, but I mean, she wasn't trying to scare the horses, was she? She was trying to scare the people in the carriages?
I didn't ask her. the news story didn't give me a motive, I guess is what I'm saying. I have no idea. Okay. One more, and then we'll get into the meat of the show. Lastly, a big game hunter was killed by a pack of elephants in Zimbabwe the other week. Which, it's kind of sad, right? But I just thought it was in pretty poor taste that the elephants then took a picture of them posing with his head.
I don't feel sorry for him at all.
No, I'm joking that they didn't do that.
Yeah.
They just killed him and left him for dead.
Good.
But hey, it's the opposite, right?
Yeah.
To be fair, I don't think he was a poacher. I think he just liked killing elephants, so.
Well, he's an asshole, so.
Yeah. Kill something that's not so cute and rare and majestic like a deer, why don't you? Right?
Well, I'm not really a fan of hunting at all, but elephants, no.
Yeah.
I don't believe in any big game hunting like that or trophy hunting. I don't like it.
Yeah, I think when you're hunting just for trophy as opposed to hunting something you're actually going to eat.
Yes, exactly.
That's where it's a little different.
Yeah, that's a difference.
Anyway, shit just got real serious. So let's go ahead and go into Summon It Up in a Tweet.
Oh yeah, we're summing it up, so summon it up. Summon it up, oh yeah, we're summing it up. Oh yeah, we're summing it up, so summon it up. Summon it up and up.
Tweet.
Okay, I think this is only the second time you've ever done one of these because you did one for the OA.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you have the honors and go first.
Well, I am a huge fan of David Lynch, but I have to just say this has been a little different. I'm a big Twin Peaks fan, so I just said weird, but who gives a fuck? Hashtag it's happening again. Hashtag Twin Peaks The Return.
Okay, there we go. It's definitely a lot of weirdness, which I don't think you spoiled anything there.
No.
No. I mean, to be fair, if you've seen his first movie ever or any of his short films, this is less weird than those. It's just, we'll talk about it.
I
We'll talk
disagree.
about it. Anyway, so let me find mine, which I thought was pretty good. Okay, you ready? This is one of the few ones I've done where I actually was kind of proud of it. Some people ask if the glass is half full or half empty. Twin Peaks asks if there's a cross-dimensional monster inside that will eat your face. Right?
Yeah.
Pretty unexpected turn in the show. Okay, that was Okay, so let's get into it. Real quick, just in case someone actually hasn't watched Twin Peaks in 25 years, which I imagine most people have done what we've done, which is go back and kind of watch all of it or most of it. And this is spoiler territory, everyone, so if you don't want to get anything spoiled, go ahead and turn it off and tune in once you've caught up. Anyway, it ends with Dale finally getting into the Black Lodge, and Wyndham Earl getting into the Black Lodge, kind of as their finale. And long story short, there's a fight with Bob, and Dale quote unquote escapes. It's not really Dale, it's the doppelganger. And if for some reason you weren't sure, the very last scene in all of Twin Peaks, for the last 25 years, was Dale looking evil in the mirror in the morning and slamming his head into the mirror over and over and bloodying it up. Mm-hmm. Clearly something's wrong. And then it ends, right? So this show starts, and it's just 25 years later, and Dale has never escaped. So it's literally doppelganger's been out for 25 years, wreaking havoc, looking like Dale, and the real Cooper has been in the Black Lodge the entire time. Mm-hmm. Like, that's where the show starts. Is that what you, like, if you were to ever say, man, I wish they'd bring Twin Peaks back, is that how you would have done it?
I don't know how I would have done it.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think like David Lynch. I just enjoy his films. So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to say if it was me doing it, probably no, because I am a huge fan of Agent Cooper. So seeing Agent Cooper's doppelganger, who is much less appealing in multiple ways, so I probably wouldn't have done it that way. But
well, yeah. So one of the things I was thinking about is because originally, this was just going to be an ongoing series, mm-hmm. and I think most audiences got hooked because Twin Peaks is groundbreaking in numerous ways, but a lot of people got hooked with this whodunit mystery. Meanwhile, the show was weird the entire time. Like, from episode 2 or 3, he is throwing rocks at glass bottles, and if they break, it's determining something in the case. So it's never been a normal show in any way. Like, it's very much always been kind of quirky and weird. But it was meant to be ongoing. But by the time Laura Palmer's, murder was found out and the main mystery was solved, the ratings fell. And then I think he's just like, well, I can kind of do whatever I want and just get the real audience happy. But I wonder if it didn't get canceled, I imagine the next storyline would immediately just be Dale trying to return and get back the doppelganger, right?
Yeah, probably.
That, mm-hmm. I mean, that naturally would have been the next storyline. So it's not a weird decision. It's also, in my mind, one of the only ways to get away with the age difference is just saying, it ended the way it ended. It's just been 25 years and he's aged. Now he's going to come back. It's a perfect way to literally pick up where the end left off and not have to, try to do digital stuff to make people look young or do makeup.
Right.
So I think in that way it's kind of brilliant, but you're right. All you want, and you finally get it by the end, but all you want is to see old school Dale Cooper, and yet most of the first episode you get the doppelganger.
Right. Well, you get Rain Man Agent Cooper.
Yeah, well, eventually.
He becomes Rain Man.
Well, yeah, so we won't tackle that yet, because that I think is technically episode 3. As I think about it, yeah. So,
okay.
So essentially, episode 1, a lot of different things happen. And here's the weird thing is, there's a lot of weirdness and a lot of imagery, yet a shit ton happens, but nothing really happens. It's all, a bunch of different small things. Right?
Yeah, and none of it really makes sense at the time.
Yeah, everything's kind of planting the seeds, right? Mm-hmm. So you have the log lady, who we actually just did research before the show because we noticed she looked sickly, right?
She was the one that most obviously had changed physically. Right?
Yeah, and we thought she did not look well, and then little did we know, this is crazy, they announced they were going to do the show in October of 2014. Mm-hmm. It's not airing until what? We're in 2017.
Yeah.
She died in September of 2015 from cancer. I guess she was so, and I haven't been able to find an interview or anything, but one would go to reason that she was so committed to being in these episodes and so excited about something I'm sure she was proud of, that she recorded scenes prior to almost anything else being filmed in the show.
Yeah, I'm curious how they even came up with those scenes.
Months away from her being dead. I will say one thing I read, though, is that they've been writing this show literally for years before there was even an announcement.
Okay.
Just kind of as a, maybe one day we'll do this. They still were writing together and kind of just for kicks, especially since David Lynch otherwise is retired.
Yeah.
So I'm sure once they're we're going to do this. It's 25 years is coming up. The episode ends with, Laura says, I'll see you again in 25 years, right? So, if we're ever going to do it, this makes the most sense. So maybe they said, well, the script's done if you want to be in it. And I'm sure she was just upfront about, I may not have a whole lot of time, but that was kind of crazy. But that has no bearing on the real plot yet. She essentially gives a message to Hawk saying, what is it exactly? That there's basically something missing, and it relates to Dale Cooper, but it also has to do with his heritage. Mm-hmm. And nothing else comes of that. And then later, eventually, he's talking to Andy about it, but that's just one random thing that happens. We get to see what's Ben Horne's brother's name?
I can't remember. He's the one that always brings out the random food items.
Yeah.
Exotic food.
Yeah, this time he brought an exotic hot brownie.
He's an old hippie now.
Jerry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, which is kind of perfect. He's a Jerry Garcia type now.
Yeah,
he's got this big white beard.
Yeah.
He's bringing a pineapple flavored, creme brulee pot dessert.
Yeah.
And his brother, they still have the same kind of relationship, though, where Ben's kind of being slightly more professional but still sleazy and underhanded. And basically just gives him a hard time for smoking too much of the pot that apparently is now their business.
Yeah.
So it used to be cocaine 25 years ago. Now, obviously, they're in, is it Oregon that the show's based in? Or Washington?
Yeah, they're in Washington.
Both states are weed legal now. So it makes sense that they almost have a legitimate business, but yet they're still dealing drugs all these years later. Which is kind of funny. So you get all these different things, and then you get what, in my mind, is kind of one of the cooler revelations of the show so far, but I don't know what they're going to do with it. And it also was so out of left field, which is this dude just in the observatory.
Oh, yeah, watching the glass box, waiting for something to appear.
Yeah, and he's very meticulous about it. An alarm goes off and he has to change SD cards that are in each of these cameras, all at very different angles, right? It's not they just have one white, it's clearly a scientific measurement type thing. And so he's constantly changing out these SD cards, but they almost give no real like context to it yet. You know?
Right.
And so it's just this weird scene of them staring at glass, and then they don't do anything else for a while. Yet eventually, and I think it's actually, it might be in the second episode or just like middle of this episode, but they finally see something. And how would you describe that crazy thing they saw in the glass?
Well, it looked like it had breasts, but it also kind of looked like an alien face. It kind of reminds me of the stick thing with that bubblegum head on it, whatever, that they go to in the Black Lodge. Kind of reminds me of more of a human form of that has all that has all the information.
Yeah, I mean, the face was similar. The face also could remind me of the lady that, you know, in episode 3, you'll see a character that it could be, but I'm not really even sure of that. But what you realize is that the dude's just making money for college or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. The guy literally otherwise has no knowledge of what's going on. He's just being paid, but he was saying that the other dude that worked there was super spooked. And then, for whatever reason, the guard is mysteriously missing. The lady comes in. They start to bang. This creature comes out. And you think it's just going to be a freaky event.
Yeah.
I did not think it was going to break the glass and then just eat their faces.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In that episode, like, you feel like it's almost completely and totally unrelated.
Yeah. Because so far they haven't really placed it anywhere with anything.
Well, and the thing that, like, we're talking about the first 2 episodes, but they premiered together, right? Mm-hmm. So what I was thinking was, it basically feels like a lot of time passes, and then eventually Dale, who gets out of the Black Lodge, and we'll talk about how that happens, when he gets out of the Black Lodge, he immediately transports, and he finds himself momentarily in that glass box.
Wasn't that in episode 3?
No. Yeah, no, that's in 1 and 2.
Okay.
Yes, that is in episode 2. I was like, am I right? Yeah. Anyway, he floats in momentarily, but you realize it's before they were murdered. Because they're on the couch and they just don't notice him.
Right.
And then he transports somewhere else. So that's literally the only connection. And my only guess is that it's just a science experiment trying to capture these interdimensional beings that we all know exist. There's the White Lodge, there's the Black Lodge, there's all of these different things. Anyway, when we get back, maybe we'll talk about the Black Lodge and some of the trippier stuff.
Or what about the fact that Matthew Lillard has a role?
Yes, which, yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack. Most of the weird stuff I think we're going to be continuing to talk about because it's more of a mystery. But what I want to do first is we're going to have a new segment, which is with one of our longtime fans ever since, I think, Stranger Things, Joshua Brookshire, who we call Brooky Shy Shy, but he's not shy at all. So we're going to call this segment Brooky Ain't So Shy Shy, and he's a hardcore Twin Peaks fan. So we will probably talk for a little bit, throw to an ad, and then we will come right back.
Player 3 has entered the game.
Okay, so I'm incredibly excited to be here with Brooky Shy Shy, the ultimate Boob Tube Buddies fan and also the ultimate Twin Peaks fan. What the fuck's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Chilling here on a rainy. Happy to talk to you. Happy to be a part of Team Mothman and happy to talk some Twin Peaks. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm ready to get into it. So I knew you were kind of hitting me up on Twitter, wanted to talk a little bit about some of the people that have passed away or weren't able to be in the show so far. So I don't know, kind of let's open it up.
I've been a huge David Lynch fan beyond just the show Twin Peaks since I was about like 15, 16 years old. So it was something that a lot of people have been expecting and like waiting for a long time. Time being what it is, the cast lost some people due to creative differences, and very sadly, due to the nature of mortality. And I would like to, since it came back, to just remember real quick, like a few of the people that we lost along the way, if that's all right with you, Mothman.
Absolutely. I think that's an amazing way to kick this show off. And because we're basically covering 1 and 2, because that's how they premiered it. And I don't know, it's kind of like the Oscars and whatnot when you honor who we've lost. So kind of walk us through some of them. I know some, but I think you know more and probably a little more accurate than I am.
The first big person to pass away happened before the dawn of the year 2000. That was Frank Silva, who played the main demonic antagonist, Bob. And Frank Silva, it's a common known story that his casting in this role was a very serendipitous accident. When they were filming the pilot, they had a shot of a mirror behind Grace Zabriskie, who plays Laura Palmer's mother, Sarah, and she looks up and screams at something, and in that moment there was a set dresser on the set who was trying to move around some furniture to get the right shot, and when they started filming, they caught Frank Silva in the mirror. And this person, Lynch, the person that he is, he likes to keep accidents and find inspiration in strange magical moments. So he took Frank Silva and built this entire character named Bob, who became an icon to fans, to myself. It's the most impressive use of like a human being as like the representation of a font of evil. They play Bob like he's a unstoppable force of violence and human sexuality, and it's really like one of the hooks that stays within viewers once you see it, most people can't forget Bob, So Frank Silva, that's the first I'd like to remember.
Yeah, so I think about Bob, and it was just such a weird concept to have it be such a normal character, but that's something that David Lynch likes to do, is he likes to have like mundane names and kind of otherwise boring stuff be kind of heightened. So the fact that like this iconic villain that's kind of like a Michael Myers type, where it's just the personification of evil, you don't really get into motive or development, it's just like pure intense evil, and it's just icon, and it's named Bob, which I just fucking love.
Right on. Moving on from there, my personal favorite character so far, I mean, there's many new people that are being introduced in the 3rd season, but it's going to be hard to take a crowbar to Mart and replace Don S. Davis, dearly departed, who played Major Garland Briggs. If people, I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you probably watched the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks. You'll remember Garland Briggs is the mysterious major whose job is classified. He's the father of Bobby Briggs. He brings a southern sartorial charm to him, a very calm demeanor to him. My favorite in all of Twin Peaks is in the first episode of the 2nd season, where he has the speech he delivers to his son, Bobby Briggs.
Yeah, about the dream he has about his son. Oh, God, it's so good.
Yeah, it isn't a dream. He says it's a vision, as separate from a dream, which is merely the day's or the mind's subconscious cataloging of the day's events. But it was a vision, fresh and clear as a mountain stream. I really like Don S. Davis. I think he was a very underrated character actor. If people remember, he played Scully's father in the first season of The X-Files, in that episode Beyond the Sea, which features Brad Dourif in it. He was also in Stargate SG-1, which I never saw, but me being the completist as I am, I'll probably end up watching that just to catch Don Davis.
At some point, yeah. The same way.
His character plays a very important role in Mark Frost's book, The Secret History of Twin Peaks, which came out last year, which so far is showing to have a lot of influence on season 3. So who knows, we might see Major Briggs again.
Did we lose anyone else? Oh, actually, one we talked about a little bit earlier was the log lady. I didn't actually realize the story. I didn't know she passed away. I didn't know any of it, but I was shocked when she showed up on screen.
Yeah, I saw it at a coffee house cinema in Greensboro, which is a neighboring town from where I live in Winston-Salem. And when she first shows up on screen with the oxygen tubes and her hair is basically down to nothing, everyone gasped. I cried. I'm not afraid to admit it. It's such a heartbreaking thing to see, and it's played. Lynch knows what he's doing because he knows that people know that she passed on weeks after filming that. She was very visibly sick during the whole thing, and it's one of those moments that Lynch adds where it's life and reality combining to a point where you know you're watching like a piece of cinema, a piece of art, but it has this real world part to it that accentuates it and makes it just so much heavier to it. I can't imagine the dedication to art and like the dedication she had. Catherine Coulson went to almost every Twin Peaks fest that they had in the Washington area, in the town where they filmed. Every year they have a big fan festival, and she was always there. And even right before they filmed that, when she was going through chemotherapy, she was there, and fans say that she seemed as normal as ever. And most of the people that I know in the fan base were just completely grief-stricken to see her on screen like that, and to know that some of the things she says, like when she says to Hawk, "I'm too weak to go on, you're going to have to do it." And it's just like, there's so much love weight to it. Like the dedication she put in is magnificent. Most people don't know that Catherine Coulson was actually David Lynch's theater teacher. And she didn't really do a lot of television roles. She spent most of her post-Twin Peaks career doing theatrical productions, small theatrical productions. She was a lifelong actress, a fan of the theater and a fan of the arts. So I think it adds something legitimately very special and something very touching to see her on screen like that. It's just broke my heart, but it's like you could tell she did it because she loved David Lynch and she loved the work itself. So that speaks volumes.
Yeah, to me it was an impactful scene. And then to go online later and read that she passed away in like September of 2015 and realize like this is 2 years later, which meant she must have like agreed very early on and said, "Hey, if you have a script, like let me do the lines now." Or, David obviously found a way to make it fit in there because they shot everything else, it seems, a whole lot later. So that's definitely impressive. And I just love the fact that she's so committed to it, that she's basically on her deathbed and she still wants to be part of what all these fans enjoy. And I had no idea about the convention bit, but that obviously shows her dedication as well. The only other person I'd like to tap on real quick before we tie it up is just the fact that he hasn't passed away or anything, but I can't find a hint that we're going to actually get the actor that plays Harry Truman in here. I think we're just going to get his brother.
Yeah, well, no, I can't spoil, but we know who the actor is playing his brother, and it's a great character actor. Well, when the time comes, we'll talk more about that. But Michael Ontkean apparently has retired from acting. He wanted to do it, but I think he's at an advanced age where he enjoys his private life, which is, that's respectable. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people, when they reach a certain age, they want to do what they want to do, so I don't really know that much about Michael Ontkean beyond Slapshot Classic and his role in Twin Peaks. But I always really enjoyed Truman in the original run. I like the interplay between him and Cooper, how it subverts the classic local law enforcement disagreeing with the Fed. I really like how they flipped that convention on its head. But with the focus seems to be shifting towards more expansive world traveling plot than or multiple world traveling plots. Really, it seems natural that certain things would change. Definitely. You know what I'm saying? And with that, I'd like to mention maybe a few actors who are still alive, but whose roles are missing. Things that were missing in the new season.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's do a speed round. We got a few more minutes, so have at it. Take away.
Quick shout out to Ian Buchanan, fabulous British soap opera star who played Dick
Yes,
Tremaine hilariously in season 2. I understand why we're not seeing him again, but he always cracked me up. Definitely underrated. I thought huge, like great character work. He's going to be missed. I'll miss Christopher Mulkey, who played Hank Jennings, Norma's ex-con husband. I like the fact that when he came in, he pretty much played it like, I know that I'm a bad guy in a soap opera, and I'm just going to be like a total smarmy jerk about it. I really enjoyed that. And if you read Mark Frost's book, The Secret History of Twin Peaks, apparently he dies shortly after being sent to jail. So obviously you can't bring him back. Yeah, I'm gonna miss him. We haven't seen any cast released information about Heather Graham, who plays Norma's sister Annie. That was a big subject. Mark Frost had subtle hints about it on Twitter, so who knows how that will be resolved. But here's hoping for maybe the possibility of a Heather Graham cameo. But the big one, the big change, those people were wondering how would they replace it, would be replacing Michael J. Anderson, who played the iconic little man from Another Place, small dancing man in the red suit. For those who don't follow Hollywood actors and their lives or whatever, Michael J. Anderson had some very serious libelous slander that he leveled against David Lynch. Things that, if you as a listener are curious to, please Google Michael J. Anderson slandered David Lynch, and you'll see exactly why David Lynch did not bring this actor back. Also, he apparently, in his advanced age, is losing his mind and a very racist, anti-Semitic person, which is a shame because he's an icon in Twin Peaks. As a lead actor in Carnival, he was awesome, great dramatic actor, but it's a shame that he had to, comport himself in a way to the point where David Lynch basically replaced an electric talking tree, which is, dude, my whole thing is like, I'm not big into predicting things, especially Twin Peaks, because you can't really predict a dream, really. That's the way David Lynch approaches things. So, but I know, because I've watched enough Lynch films, is that whenever he has like a grudge against somebody, he takes it out on them in film. If you watch Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, it opens with a shot of television being smashed with an axe. Basically him talking about how he hated working for CBS and their constrictions. When you watch Mulholland Drive and Inland Empire, it's all about the casting process and how producers constantly demean these directors and like tell them what to do when they have no idea of it. So he shows them getting their car windows smashed in and like being in league with demonic forces, things like that. But I guess if you level serious slander against David Lynch, he'll turn your iconic character, who up there with Cooper, Bob, Audrey, and the little man, one of the 4 or 5 most iconic characters in his entire most popular series. He turns it into a tree and calls it the amazing evolution of the arm, which I think is it's a artistic statement, which is just subtle enough to where it's like, yeah, I don't need you. I can turn you into a prop. I like that says a lot about Lynch, and I have a lot of respect for him for doing that. It's a very ballsy move, and say what you will, criticism aside, season 3 is showing me, at least as a lifelong fan, that even in his old age, David Lynch still has some gigantic balls.
So that is a fantastic place to end it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We will continue to have you on and geek out about Twin Peaks, because we have essentially 18 episodes up until September, so there's tons to continue talking about. So thanks again, man. We'll see you next time.
Catch you later, little buddies.
Player 3 has left the game.
Okay, we are back. Thank you so much, Brooky, for doing that incredible segment, and we're looking forward to having you on each, if not every single episode, because you're much more knowledgeable than I and all the weirdness that is Twin Peaks, and you even read the book that came out about it, so you're batting 100 compared to us. Anyway, what we're actually going to talk about first is some of the weirdness, like at the Black Lodge and the imagery. Mm-hmm. So what was one of the characters?
The arm?
Which was?
The stick thing that had the bubblegum head.
Yeah, so I somehow missed that he was called the Arm.
Yeah, he's referred to as the Arm.
But I know there's a line, and I can't remember what it is, but essentially he is the evolved version of whatever that thing's name is, the Man from Another Place. So remember the little person from the first ones, that the first person that spoke in reverse and dance? Right. I guess he was not brought into this movie. They were trying to bring him into the series, and there's like a salary disagreement. I guess he wanted too much, so they just didn't do it.
They replaced him with the weird stick thing.
Yeah, but no, there's more. He on Facebook said like the most slanderous thing, and said basically said that David Lynch, his daughter is Laura, and that outside of killing her, he raped her and did everything else that Leland did to her, and then forced her to write the memoirs of Lauren Palmer, but really they're her memoirs. Because there's a book called The Memoirs of Lauren Palmer that Jessica Lynch, David Lynch's daughter, wrote. Like, he didn't write them. Like, she wrote them as it. And so he said, like, those are really just all the abuses her father did.
What?
Yeah. So he said all these things.
That's crazy.
Well, it's obviously crazy. He said them immediately after he wanted more money for the movie, and they're like, or the show, and they're like, we're only using you in like 5 scenes. No, like, this is what we'll pay you. Anyway, so David Lynch is like, oh, fuck you now. You're just a tree with a stick with gum on it.
Literally.
Now, I don't remember exactly, because we actually didn't get around to finishing it, but I know in Fire Walk With Me, they reveal that there's kind of a connection between the Man from Another Place and Mike, who is the spirit that inherits Gerard. Mm-hmm. So Philip Gerard's the guy with one arm.
Right.
He's inherited by Mike. You know, Bob's inheriting Leland, you know, that type of thing. But what's interesting is he's missing an arm, and now the evolved form of the Man from Another...
It's called The Arm.
The Arm. So I'm sure there's a little
connection
a better way to package that.
Yeah.
But, you know, he plays with a lot of different imagery. Otherwise, like... So there's more of it in episode 3 and 4, which we'll talk about next time, but when he starts to travel back, a lot of the imagery in the Black Lodge is kind of not the best effects, right? Like, you can kind of tell there's this CGI image of the lodge and then the stick with gum on it, yet he looks like a little bit superimposed. Did you catch that?
Maybe I wasn't, maybe not.
So it's kind of like in old movies, what they would do is actually have a screen playing, and then the character would stand in front of it. Or like in a movie when they're driving.
Wouldn't that just be typical Lynchian type effects, though? I mean, because he does stuff like that. He likes.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. It doesn't look like his typical effects, and I think it was more of a budget issue. But what he did a really good job with is immediately after, when they're actually doing some of the other stuff, he intentionally makes that look really weird. So like when Cooper is traveling through space, and it's just zoom-ins of like grainy footage really fast, and then but otherwise the actual quality of everything looks like an 80s music video.
Yeah.
Like, he very intentionally does that.
Well, that might be why I didn't pick up on that, because I thought it was probably intentional.
Well, yeah, and to me what it looked like was like one of them, just the effect didn't look as realistic as they wanted, but then he immediately transitioned into a weird enough stuff to where
it didn't matter. Yeah,
it didn't matter. It felt seamless.
Yeah.
So he does a really good job playing with the budget he has and the look of things, because immediately one of the things I noticed is everything looks different, and it's because it's shot in HD, and you're watching a show shot on film in 4:3, and it's just got a completely different feel. So I think doing some of these weird kind of retro psychedelic stuff kind of makes it feel a little bit more like the original in some ways, even though the scenes are literally the weirdest the other show ever really got.
It's, to me, way weirder than the original Twin Peaks.
Well, and I think I guess what I'm curious about, because they finally they do have a scene, I think in episode 2, where Shelley and Bob or James interact, right? You finally and then you finally get a little bit of Andy and the secretary, I can't remember her name. Anyway, you finally start to get some scenes with them where they're just interacting and being a little quirky. I think you'll get a lot more of that across the 18 episodes. I think right now they're immediately starting really weird because he's leaving the Black Lodge. But, I mean, David Lynch has run the gamut of being a movie like Blue Velvet that's a weird plot and has some weirdness, and to a movie like Mulholland Drive that gets really weird, to a movie like Eraserhead that's just like really out there the entire time. And then his last movie was I don't know, the one with Laura Dern in it. It was like, I'm trying to remember the life of it. Oh, Inland Empire. Really, really weird. You know, a lot, like, not much of a normal plot going on there. So he kind of does a little bit of everything, but Twin Peaks always felt more grounded simply because it was like a spoof of soap operas interspersed with all his weirdness.
My thing is, I would just like to know someone like David Lynch, like a mind like that, a brain like that. Is he just that out there, or does he do a lot of really awesome drugs? I mean, like, how can you even begin to think that way?
Yeah, I mean, I actually want to watch the documentary they put out about him and see a little more into his process, because I've watched almost every Lynch film, if not all of them, and I am a really big fan, but a lot of directors, you don't get into their
psyche.
Yeah, their process. But the more I have learned with him over the years, like, he is a fan of transcendental meditation and like Buddhist culture, which is why Dale Cooper is. And so a lot of it, I think, is just dream logic. And that's why so much of the riddles are like, you know what I mean? Like the idea that dreams tell you something about yourself, or deep meditation tells you about yourself, but it's not going to say, you know, you should quit your job and do this because you love it. It's going to, you know, be a weird rustle in the wind in the trees in a dream you had one night that gives you a feeling, and then you make it that. So, you know, I think he's playing with all that interpretation of dreams and what people kind of do. And then you couple that with drugs. I mean, essentially what most drugs are doing is triggering parts of your brain that are being triggered during dreams. Yeah. In some way, shape, or form.
I'm not saying he does any. I don't know. It's hard for me to understand how somebody could be like that and not do any. Yeah. I mean, you've got to. That's way out there. So.
Anyway, is there anything else you wanted to talk about in these episodes?
Matthew Lillard.
Oh shit. Yeah, the whole first episode.
Yeah, Matthew Lillard. Ding ding.
Yeah, so I mean, now that I think about it, they kind of did a good job actually of dispersing the weirdness. Because I think of the first 2 episodes of just being so batshit insane and weirdly bizarre, yet there's a whole police procedural and normal plot that takes place between it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I were to sum up the first episode, it would be about this murder, this investigation, but there's so many other weird things.
Unrelated and doesn't even take place in Twin Peaks. It takes place in another state.
Yeah, but like, yeah, I feel like that's the bulk of the linear plot, and then all this other weirdness is happening. Yeah, so it's in South Dakota. It's a murder that's clearly related to Bob, who's taken over, you know, it's the doppelganger of Dale. And it's a severed head
of a woman
with a bullet hole in it, I think.
And she's on top of like a big bloated hairy body, or I think it's a man's body, I'm not sure. So
it's like a double murder and like all this mutilation, and then the cop investigates, and the cop, such a I don't know, he has a good way of making people weird without being
he's just super monotone.
Yeah, so he's monotone, but because he's monotone and he doesn't really inflect at all, and even the words he chooses aren't that expressive or flowery. They're very like matter of fact. He's consoling Matthew Lillard, and it doesn't come off as consoling. It's just like, you know, tell me if you know anything. But I guess this principal locally, all of his prints are inside this room
of the murdered woman.
Yeah, so they're taking him in, and then he has his wife come in, who he's like, look, and he's actually a good actor, like in this, and he says,
he's a perfect character to bring in.
Yeah, because
person to bring into the to Twin Peaks. Yeah.
Yeah, he seems like I haven't seen him in anything, and I certainly don't remember him for his acting chops in Scooby-Doo as Shaggy, but like when he's
Scream.
Right, or in Scream. But when he's in the cell and his wife comes and he's like, I wasn't having an affair, but I had this incredibly vivid dream where I was in her room. And it felt like I was there, but I promise it was a dream. I woke up and I was next to you and blah, blah, blah. And she, of course, like completely turns on him and basically says, I'm going to...
She says she knew about the affair the whole time.
And then he's like, well, I knew about your affair with my lawyer. You know, he's like, I know about your affair, but then he's like, but it's my lawyer oh God. And she's like, you're going to get life because I'm fucking your lawyer and I'm just going to get everything. So he's like, I am fucked. But the dream thing seems sincere. It seemed like he was actually having an affair and then had a violent dream of a murder.
Right.
And once again, we're talking about dreams and dreams being a reality. And somehow she's dead. And did Dale do it to Dale, you know?
Yeah.
And the other stuff that happens with Dale is he, kills 2 other people. And makes one comment, and this is the only thing I think really worth mentioning in this episode because it's going to come more to fruition, but he makes a comment about, I'm supposed to return to the Black Lodge. So Dale gets told he's supposed to go back to Twin Peaks and return Bob. Bob knows he's meant to go back, but Bob says he has a plan to avoid going back to the Black Lodge.
And somehow he becomes Dale, who is a manager of an Albertsons wearing a gold coat.
Not yet.
Oh, what?
Not yet. All of that's episode 3.
Oh, wait. He's not manager of an Albertsons. I'm just throwing that out there. But he looks like it because he's wearing the gold coat. It reminds me of an Albertsons manager.
Spoiler alert, you get to see Dale in some weird outfits in another episode.
Yeah.
That's not giving too much away. I mean, you already get to see him look like prim and proper, like FBI agent, like, X-Files kind of motif that Twin Peaks set out. And then you also get to see him as the doppelganger with a mullet. It's kind of like Eugene from it's like the Eugene look from Walking Dead.
Yeah.
But he doesn't talk quite like that. Someone online pointed out that he looks like Michael Madsen from like Kill Bill, and I can definitely see that. So well, I think that wraps it up. Thank you so much for listening. Hit us up on Patreon, give us a review or subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We're also on all the social media stuff. Be part of the conversation. We haven't even looked at Reddit and all the fan theories that are out there because we just kind of wanted to talk about how it's going so far, but we definitely want conversations to happen around that because over 18 episodes that aren't going to end until September, I imagine there's going to be a few, riddles wrapped inside an enigma. So anyway, we will see you next time, little buddies.